Hey everyone, I'm here with Ariel Hendelman. Thank you so much for meeting with me. So Ariel is one of the co-founders of Shabbat Shelach, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. But I would love if you can talk to me a bit about your story. You made Aliyah around what age? I kind of just want to get to know you and for our listeners to get to know you.
Sure. Do you want me to hold it or?
Sure.
No.
Whatever you want.
So I made Aliyah, it was about 5.5 years ago.
Wow.
I actually came here on Birthright. It's like the classic Birthright story, like what they're always hoping for, I think. Like I came on Birthright in 2009 with my sister. And it was actually, I think now they've made the cutoff age later, but at the time I was right at the cutoff where like if I'd waited any longer, I wouldn't have been able to go. And I just fell in love with Israel. And I just felt something very, very deep when I was here. And like I was connecting to this sort of this unknown part of myself that I really wanted to know more. And so it took a few years after that. But the seed had been planted on that Birthright trip. And then it was just a question of me like trying to get back to Israel. So I finally did. I guess it was maybe like 4 years after that. And I went to Kibbutz Eliyahu.
Oh yeah, amazing.
Which is an amazing place.
Yeah.
Amazing place. And you know, like hands in the dirt, like working the earth, you know, in the organic garden. Yeah, they have an ulpan there. So ostensibly I went for the ulpan. I thought, let me get back. I didn't know I was going to make Aliyah yet. This was still 6 months before that.
Yeah.
I thought, let me go. I'll learn to speak Hebrew. It's something I've always wanted. I'll get to go back to Israel, which I've been wanting. This is like a way for me to get back. And let me just see what happens. And I kind of went like eyes open, heart open. And it quickly became clear that it was a lot more than just learning Hebrew. It was a lot more than just being on a kibbutz. It was like my neshama was leading me back here.
Wow.
And I think about halfway through the ulpan experience, I remember calling my mom and saying, I'm going to make Aliyah, sell my car, I need the money. And she was like, okay.
That's so
and, like,
cool.
didn't miss a beat. Like she was like, okay, I can see that this is part of your journey.
I feel like that's rare.
Yeah.
A lot of parents don't necessarily support Aliyah right away.
Yeah, she did. It was like I needed something. I really needed something.
Yeah.
And this was the next step in my journey, and I really, it was palpable, like to me and to anybody who was close to me, that this was the right thing.
Yeah, that's so cool. And then, so for people who are listening and don't know what Shabbat Shelach is, it's basically for women in the LGBTQ community to get together, and because you are married and a lesbian and proud and out, were you already out of the closet by the time that you got to Israel, or was it like a journey that you experienced when you were already here?
So I was out. I mean, I had been dating women since I was 18. So I knew who I was. And I came here and I had this feeling. Well, first of all, my dream was that I was going to meet an Israeli woman. Oh. That was my dream. And she was going to like sweep me off my feet and teach me Hebrew. Meanwhile, I'm married to, a Jewish lady from Brooklyn.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Very Israeli.
Right. Totally. So that dream kind of didn't happen. But I didn't have any illusions that I was going to end up with anyone other than a woman like that. Yeah. I knew that was my path. But it wasn't until a few years into my Israel journey where I started to question that a little bit. Or let's say I started to have internal conflict about it, which I think a lot of people who I know grew up religious had at some point. But I grew up Reform. So I didn't have that conflict of it. I never thought, God thinks this is wrong. Or, I just thought you love who you love, you're attracted to who you're attracted to. Yeah. And that's it. I mean, not that my parents were so amazing about it when I first came out. They weren't, but it wasn't for religious reasons. And people can be closed-minded for all different kinds of reasons, and they don't need religion as an excuse. Thank God we got through that, but it took years and years and years. I think about 7 years, actually, for them to finally kind of come around and be accepting and, like, welcome girlfriends into the house and all that.
Did you come out in high school? Or when you were 18 when you said you started dating women?
So, yeah, my first serious relationship with a woman was when I was, my first girlfriend was at the end of high school, but that was like, I didn't really come out to anyone at that time. It was very confusing. I didn't think that anyone was going to accept it. I knew right away, as soon as that started, I was like, well, this is so exciting. This is what I've been waiting for. This is like, I actually feel intimate with this person on every level, physical, emotional. So it was pretty clear to me but I didn't actually tell anybody until my first long relationship, which started when I was 18. We were together for about 6 years.
Wow.
And I came home from my freshman fall of college, and I remember sitting down and saying to my parents, like, this thing with Liz is a little more than just a friendship.
Yeah.
And that was not received well. It was a really difficult conversation, and it was heartbreaking for me, because I thought, I guess that was the point where, like, the illusion of unconditional love was sort of broken, and I realized that love is often very conditional.
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like there's places in a lot of our lives where people who are supposed to love us forget and get too caught up in themselves to remember that there's another person in front of them.
Yeah. Like, wait, but you're supposed to be this.
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me you're this, but this isn't what I want for you.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom saying, and this was very clear in my mind. She was like, I don't want your life to be hard. And this was one of the kinder things she said in this conversation. But, and I get that. No parent is going to wish that on their kid, to have a harder life.
Of course.
But, this is what it is.
Right. Like, you love who you love, and in the end, if you are in a place where you were ready to come out, it means that this is what you feel, and they have to accept that.
So that actually, it sort of sent me back. It sort of sent me backwards, that conversation, into the closet. Like, I was only out during that whole 6-year relationship, all of our friends knew, of course. We had a lot of the same friends, but I wasn't out in most other situations. And like, I would always have to feel it out and make sure it was safe first.
Yeah.
And I think part of that was, well, if I'm coming from this place where the people who are supposed to love me don't accept this, how can anybody else accept it?
Yeah, I totally get that. And then,
so it was a long journey. Yeah.
So you said that when you got to Israel, you felt like you started to question these feelings. Right.
So I got to Israel. I was single at the time. And, feeling like I was going to meet my person here, and this was going to be a woman, and we were going to ride off into the sunset. And after I came back from kibbutz, I finished my, the stuff I needed to do for my aliyah. Came back to Israel, made aliyah. I went to Ulpan for 6 months, the second Ulpan, the one like that they send you to in the Merkaz Klita. Trippy experience, but whatever. It's a whole nother podcast about that.
Totally.
And then I actually went to for a year to do a year of learning.
Wow.
And also to do an Orthodox conversion.
Wow.
Because I had converted when I was 3. My mom and I did a conservative conversion. My dad was Jewish.
Yeah.
So I never thought there was any problem with that, but a friend told me, look, you might want to do an Orthodox conversion. Like, not everyone might accept that as halachic, although my mom learned for a year and immersed in a mikveh at the end of that. It seemed pretty legit. But I wanted to do a year of learning anyway, so it was sort of like, because I never got to do that, not growing up religious, like my religious friends who went to seminary after high school. So anyway, that's how I ended up in this midrashah environment, and it was during that time that I really started to question, because I was learning all the stuff about Judaism, and I was really, really on this intense journey of tshuva. The likes of which I've never experienced before, and even now, as a religious woman, I don't have that same like fervor that I had then. It was really, really like fire inside. You know, it was really intense, and I thought, for the first time, maybe this isn't what God wants from me, and I want to just. All I want is the truth. I just want to know, like, what's the will of Hashem, and I just want to do that, whatever that is. And I need to try to be open to that, and I need to try to be open to the fact that, like, what if it's not what I've been doing?
Right.
And I never thought I would think that. And so I sort of went through that, and I remember going on a date with a guy while I was there. It was really awkward. Like, we walked around the yeshuv, and, like, that was the date. And I remember coming home to my caravan after that date, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, this isn't me. Yeah. And it was at that point that I realized, and this was also really like the seeds of Shabbat Shelach being planted as well. Like, there are 2 truths inside me. One is that I'm going to be with a woman, that I am drawn to women in every possible way. Mm-hmm. And the other is that I am on a spiritual journey, and I want to connect authentically to my Creator, and as a Jewish woman, and I want to connect to the rituals and depth of my tradition. And these two truths somehow have to come together.
Yeah.
It can't be that these two truths are going to live separately inside of me. Like, they have to converge.
Absolutely.
Because it's me. It's all me.
Yeah.
And that was, I know that was necessary. It was painful. But I think probably most people who you talk to, I know that most people who I speak to, at least from Shabbat Shelach, have that journey in one form or another. And maybe they had it earlier than me, because a lot of them grew up religious, whereas I didn't. But yeah, it was a journey of discovery.
Did you feel like in this midrasha, while you were going through really such an emotional, raw journey, did you feel that the midrasha accepted that and tried to assist in whatever you needed and not necessarily push things? Because I know, like, even though I haven't gone through stuff like that, I know people in the midrasha world and I've experienced certain parts of it, and I know, like in my experience, that hasn't been always the case.
Right. They didn't know I was going through this journey. This was all internal. I had a couple of friends, like my roommate for the first 6 months, who I'm still a close friend now. She was someone who I would talk to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not like I was going up to the teachers or to the Rebbitzin and saying, hey, I'm struggling with this. Like, I knew that wasn't going to be okay, and it wouldn't have been. That became clear later.
Mm-hmm.
Because I actually met Esther, my wife, at this midrasha.
Really?
We overlapped for like the last month of my tochnit there.
Wow.
And so we got together pretty quickly after like a couple weeks after meeting, and it became clear that we were gonna start dating. And so this was now, like, we're talking about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. And then people started finding out that we really tried to keep it a secret, and even though we didn't overlap for that long, I then moved to Jerusalem, and she was still there.
Right.
For a few months learning, and so I would like come back to visit for Shabbat and stuff like that, and people found out, and the administration at the school found out, and and so that was really difficult. I had some really uncomfortable conversations with the Rebbits in there. Basically just saying, like, look, if I had known about this, I would have, she basically said, like, she would have still supported my conversion,
mm-hmm.
but she would have helped me to, like, turn straight, basically. I forget how she put it. She didn't say it that way, but it was like, I would have helped you, like, we would have dealt with this. So in my mind, it was like that Jonah, that kind of stuff, that conversion therapy.
I have the worst feeling of chills all over my body, like not the good kind.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's horrid.
And the thing is, I know this woman was just trying to do her best with the information she had, and
mm-hmm.
she really believed she could help me.
Yeah.
And I tried to be honest with her, and during our conversations, I said, look, I'm not gonna end this relationship.
Yeah.
And there was I was worried, basically for a year after that my conversion was going to be revoked.
Wow.
That didn't happen, thank God. But I was like really walking on eggshells, and I hope and I believe that part of it was that she knew, like, nothing came from her. She could have contacted them, she never did.
Yeah.
I believe it was because she knew and she saw me through the journey and knew that I was very sincere.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it was also a process for her of like, okay, I have this person who's now dating a woman, and yet I saw that they were so sincere through this journey. Like, what do I do? I don't know what that was like for her.
Yeah.
But it was very stressful. It was very, very stressful for that year after.
Yeah.
Just not knowing, and also feeling like going back into that shame place of, okay, wow, like, I just went through this beautiful journey, and, did I do something wrong? Like, I happened to fall in love at the end of it.
Yeah.
Like, did I do something wrong here?
I feel like, especially just because you decided to convert, like, which a lot of people wouldn't do in your situation. A lot of people say, I'm Jewish just as much as everybody else.
Right.
You decided to take that extra step to be sure, to be confident in yourself and in your religion.
Yeah.
And then to kind of face that by the person who helped you is, for sure, like, an emotional machloket. Like,
yeah. It's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
it was like, I think I was hiding the stress even from myself. I remember towards the end of that year, it was a little over a year after I had left, and, that I had completed that whole journey. I went to the Ukraine for the first time to go kever hopping, as I like to say it, daven by the Kivrei Tzadikim, and I was having this debilitating back pain, to the point where, and I had gone to get acupuncture, I had gone to get massages, and I had sought out several avenues to try to get healing for it, and nothing was helping, and I was barely able to walk or move.
Wow.
And I went on this trip, and I was talking to my friend who was taking Ben Gay on my back every hour, as we're on this trip. It was it was horrible, and I'm taking tons of Advil and nothing's helping. And I realized through our conversations, because she was like, what's going on? Yeah. And I told her, that I was worried about this whole thing, and I hadn't gotten my official certificate yet, saying that I had completed the conversion, and which I got right after that trip. I realized that it was stress. Wow. I was so incredibly stressed, and I was telling myself, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. This is spirit. They can't take away, the spiritual journey that I went on. But it did matter to me. It mattered to me.
It mattered enough for you to go through conversion twice.
Right.
Of course it mattered.
Right.
I feel like that is one of the biggest signs of how authentic you are in your connection to religion, is because you took those extra steps that so many people wouldn't do, and you felt that so deeply.
Yeah.
So of course it matters to you, and I feel like it's such a shame that you felt like you had to repress it, or you had to think it's not important.
Thank you. We I think we do a lot of things to try to convince ourselves that things are okay, and we can compartmentalize and we can justify, and my brain was already going there, just in case, God forbid, something bad had happened at the end of that, it was oh, well, it's okay, you don't need this, you don't need the external validation. Sure. But it would have been devastating.
Of course. And then did you feel, now, you said that you finished this trip, you got your papers.
Yeah.
Nobody can take this away. You are, thank God, you finished your conversion the way that you wanted it to.
Yeah.
Did you have difficulty, you were already dating your wife at the did you have difficulty coming into this community, into this religious community, and being hey, I'm proud, I have a girlfriend who I love, and now she's my wife, accept me because I'm authentic? Was that easy?
Well, I had been sort of indoctrinated into the, for lack of a better word, into the Nachlaot community right when I came into Jerusalem, to move to Jerusalem, because I had some friends who were in this community, so they brought me in, then I started meeting their friends, and I knew that this was where I wanted to live. I loved the people immediately, I connected with them, I loved that they were, such creative forces, free spirits, but you didn't have to sacrifice open-mindedness, or rather, you didn't have to sacrifice deep spirituality and Torah for open-mindedness. Yeah. You can get all of that here. Yeah. And so I really fell into this community, and I was wow, okay, I'm so grateful to be here. So that happened very organically, to use a Nachlaot word. And I've been living here now, I guess 3.5 years.
Wow.
So I had a great community sort of, building up, as I said, just from meeting friends of friends and connecting with people. And then, Esther moved here, and so people from the get-go knew, everyone who I met in Nachlaot knew me as being with Esther.
Yeah.
I never encountered any real closed-mindedness or prejudice in terms of my Nachlaot friends. They were all very open-minded, thank God.
Yeah.
And all of them fairly religious. But when we started Shabbat Shelach, which was, it'll be 3 years ago this winter, I can't believe actually that it's been that long. It basically came from a place of, first of all, most of my friends at the time were straight. Yeah. Which is great. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it's also nice to have a community where you can see yourself mirrored back, where you share in certain struggles, where you can have those points of connection, because my straight friends couldn't totally understand all the nuances of my journey, the way that LGBTQ people, women could.
Yeah.
Specifically religious LGBTQ women.
Yeah.
So Sarah Weil, who I'd become friends with, actually through writing a J-Post story.
Really?
Because I was who's a lesbian activist I should talk to? And I was you got to talk to Sarah Weil. I said, okay. And at that time, the women's gathering was still going. Mm-hmm. So I'd gone to a few women's gatherings. We met, and we started becoming closer. And she and I were talking, and I forget exactly what she said, and I wish I could remember, but it sparked something in me where I thought, wow, we really need to build a community for women, of LGBTQ women, around the Shabbat table. Like, that would be amazing. Why isn't anyone doing that?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so it's the classic, why isn't anyone doing that? Why don't I do that?
Amazing.
And so she and I started this project, and I remember having the first meal. I think maybe 8 women came.
Wow.
And Esther and I were house sitting at the time in the Merkaz Ha'ir, in this really trippy house, all these crazy African masks. I remember this. And the women came, and we were nervous, and we didn't know how it was going to be, and we didn't know most of the people who came, and yet we sat down, and it felt in a way like family. Wow. People shared their stories, and we shared coming out stories. We shared stories of struggle, being and everyone was in a different place. Some women had grown up religious and had then felt totally rejected by it. And so then had consequently rejected it in return.
Yeah.
Some were, I think 1 or 2 were coming from my place, although the majority are not Balat Tshuva like me.
Yeah.
And some were more like, Esther, who grew up religious and are still somewhere on that sort of spiritual spectrum.
Yeah.
Not that those who grew up religious and rejected Orthodoxy are not still spiritual.
No,
of course they are.
Spirituality is general.
Yeah.
But Jewish spirituality with that connection to Judaism is a bit more specific.
Yeah, and to be involved in an active way in the rituals, and but what I've noticed is Shabbat is really the great equalizer, because even the women who are in Shabbat Shelach, now fast forward 3 years later, we're at 140 members, which is amazing.
Wow, that's amazing.
And these women still feel a connection to Shabbat, or they wouldn't be coming. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if they don't keep Shabbat. That doesn't matter. But we gather around the table, and it's like saying, we have a place for you here.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if there's a place for you at any other Shabbat table, because there's one here for you.
Wow. I feel like that's probably so missing for people who felt rejected by the religious community, or felt that coming out meant that they had to suffer the consequence of not keeping any Judaism. Yeah,
that it has to be one or the other.
Yeah.
And you know what I think also, and it's something that Yiska Smith talks about a lot, who's become not only a part of Shabbat Shelach, but really our spiritual mentor of the community. Don't wait for somebody to accept you. That's galut. We don't need that. We don't need that. We don't need to wait. Yeah. We are making our community, and we're here, and we're proud that we're here. And we are going to live authentic, spiritual, religious lifestyles as who we are, in whatever form that takes. And we don't need to wait for someone to say, oh, we accept you now. No, I accept myself. Yeah. And that's huge. That's huge.
I feel like this program is such a pioneering space. I
hope
really,
so.
Honestly, maybe just because I am not part of the LGBT female community, but I really haven't heard about a program that is specifically like this.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot about programming for LGBTQ people.
Yeah.
I've heard, some nice ideas, but I haven't heard something that actually focuses on Judaism, Jewish spirituality, and says no, you don't need to throw part of you away just because you want to live happily and authentically.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's something that Sarah, thank you. It's something Sarah and I talk about a lot still, because the other side of it is we don't feel, and right now I'm only speaking for her and I, although this may be reflective of other people's experience, in Shabbat Shelach, that the sort of general LGBTQ community is always reflective of us in terms of our values, in terms of, let's say, maybe what people think when they think of the Tel Aviv Pride Parade. And I've been to Tel Aviv Pride, and it's great, and it's fun, and I'm not trying to, disparage anybody. But in terms of the kind of life that I live and the values that come with that, it's more reflected in the Shabbat Shelach experience for me than it is in something like the Tel Aviv Pride Parade, although there's also a space for that.
Of course.
And that's been really important.
Yeah, I feel like for our listeners, just so if you're in the closet or out of the closet, how does a woman in this community reach out to you guys?
Yeah, okay, it's a good question. So our group, which is more active, first of all, I should say we host monthly meals. Mm-hmm. It's a dinner and a lunch. We rotate hosts. So all that information and the details are posted in this group on Facebook, but it's a private group because we want to respect our members' privacy. All of them are in different stages of being out, you know, in whatever form that takes. But we do have a public Facebook page, so you can search for Shabbat Shelach in Hebrew or in English, and it'll come up. And then if you message the public Facebook page, you know, you'll get to us, or people can just type in Ariel Dominique, that's my name on Facebook, and they can message me.
Okay. Awesome.
Thank God we have new members coming in all the time.
Yeah. I really want to encourage people that if you are looking for this type of community, to reach out.
Yeah, please. We want to hear from you. Yeah, you have space. And really, what I discovered through this is, like, I had a divide inside of me, right? It was like, I am a religious, spiritual woman, and I am also with a woman.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to, you know, form a community that can celebrate, you know, these two halves, so that I can build a bridge inside of myself. And what I found was other people felt that way too. And it wasn't just me building a bridge inside myself. It was all of us building this bridge together. And it's so validating and comforting to know that I'm not alone in this. And it's like, maybe I knew that on a cognitive level, but to feel it and know it and really be able to internalize that, that's been a beautiful thing.
I feel like, you know, to be a religious woman who's married in Jerusalem, in Israel, is such a
only
dream.
A month. It's very new. Very new.
I know, Mazal Tov. It's so exciting.
Thank you.
I honestly even just want to ask, like, how was that? How is it to go through the process of getting married here? Because Israel, if whoever's listening doesn't live here, it's more complicated than it would be in the U.S. or in Australia, where same-sex marriages are openly accepted. And
we're not legally married yet. Yeah. We'll go next summer to America, and we'll get our marriage license. So, you know, you can get civilly married here. That is something you can do through a lawyer. We're also going to do that. But we had a beautiful ceremony, but it was a completely on the spiritual plane. We didn't walk away from that ceremony, you know, legally married, right? So, hopefully, we can continue this conversation in a different day. But I hope you guys get in touch. Yeah. So that was a whole nother journey.
For sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And hope you guys follow their page and tune in for another podcast whenever.